pages and education. We're glad to have you here. I'm Susan King. I'm the Dean of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication here. And this is our first Women in Media Leadership series of this year, 2014. And I think you're in for a treat. You're going to get to be challenged by Amanda Bennett, who I'm just going to describe in a short way because I know you've probably read about her or will read more about her. And so for me, the question is, where do I start? So she was editor of the Harvard Crimson, worked at the Harvard Crimson when she was an undergraduate. She'll tell you a little more about that. And then she got almost her first job at this little newspaper called the Wall Street Journal, where she worked for more than 20 years. And she was at those exotic world capitals like Detroit and Atlanta, and then she was in China. And China was really starting to become an amazingly different country. We'll talk about that. And then she went into the editor role at the Oregonian. And along the way, she started winning Pulitzer Prizes. Won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. The first one for a team of reporters who did stories on some misrepresentation around medicines and AIDS. And then she won one as the lead editor for a public service Pulitzer, which can sometimes be the most meaningful of all, because it's saying you really did something for it. And then she went to a storied newspaper that has been on a decline in the last few years. It was a night reader newspaper called the Philadelphia Inquirer. She was the first woman editor in its 174 years. That's when I started really hearing about her, because she was making waves in our business. Has been at Bloomberg, running their investigative unit for the last few years, and is now back to doing what she loves best. You're going to hear more about her, and I've asked her to start by talking about her career from her point of view, what makes her, motivates her. But I want to introduce you to our panel. We're going to just talk today. Rhonda Gibson, if you haven't been in class with her, you will be signing up for a class after this. Rhonda's one of our, she started as a medical reporter. She really loved journalism, and then she decided to get a PhD. And she did her scholarship around how news people really shape and frame stories, and did really important scholarship around how the selections they make, the stories that they tell, actually sort of frame different issues. She'll tell you more about that another time. I think she's important because she was our lead faculty member in our online NATC program, and she's been a huge success. Laura Marshall, also a journalist in television. She's done everything. She's been the assignment editor, reporter, and producer. She's even news director. And then she decided to go into public relations, worked out on the West Coast in health-related issues, Kaiser Permanente. Got her master's degree here last year in studying sort of cancer issues. Is now a PhD candidate looking at public policy like evolving care. And then our undergraduate senior extraordinaire, Chelsey, who has been with the DTH. And for me, one of the most exciting things, she and this front row here have created a new publication on campus. It is all digital, it is deep thinking, it is long form, and it's called Synapse. And you can get it on your app. So you want to see it, some amazing stories. So we're going to have a conversation, and we want you to be part of it. So I'm just going to start by saying, tell us what you want them to know about you.
I want you to know that I wanted to be a journalist because I told some of these people I wanted to go for rising things. I wanted to have experiences. I wanted to do different things. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to be adventurous. I was very adventurous. I have had an awesome career, and you guys are also going to have awesome careers. You guys are in the demographic sweet spot, and you're going to have a career just like mine, only completely different. And it's a blast. Being a journalist is a blast. That's what I'm
All right, Rhonda.
Well, I've got a big question for you, given that this is a Women in Leadership series. I want to ask about the Bloomberg Women Project. But before that, you opened the door to this. You wanted to ride things. So I read in one of the bios about you that after graduation you got a motorcycle and rode around France. Was that made up, or is that a myth?
I really did. I really did. I decided I didn't want to go to college right away, so I
I mean, so this was after high school?
It was after high school. I was 18, and going to France was really exotic then. You guys, I bet you guys have been to every country on the planet. It wasn't like that then. So I got the Berlitz records, and I did 6 Berlitz records, so I knew how to speak French perfectly. I got on a plane not knowing where I was going, and I wound up working in a community for mentally handicapped adults. I was an au pair, and then I bought a motorcycle, and I rode around France all by myself, which is something I am not letting my daughter do. I just want you to know there's something happening. So, yeah.
All right,
So risk is something that you, Greg,
I love it.
you love it.
Yeah.
Why do you like risk?
I don't like risk for itself. I like doing fun things. And when I was 18, as I'm sure all of you, I was too stupid to understand exactly what the level of risk I was taking was. Motorcycling around France and camping out by myself at night in strange places. I didn't understand that, which is why I got not letting my daughter do it. But no, I didn't think about I'm going to go do this stupid risky thing. I was thinking, oh, that'd be awesome. Let's get a motorcycle, let's go places. And I couldn't afford anything, so I bought a tent. I went to a flea market, bought a backpack.
well, actually, I think there's a good lesson in that, is that don't be afraid to, especially at this point in your life where you don't have a mortgage and 14 kids and all the things that my time is, don't be afraid to take the leap. I'm impressed with how many of our undergraduates are just willing to go to New York, even without maybe a full-time job lined up, to just go and plan. So do you see you mentioned that they're going to have awesome careers just like yours, but only different. How do you see that as being different now? Is more risk-taking needed because maybe there are fewer traditional full-time benefits jobs, or how do you see the landscape for this group of folks graduating in the next year or two?
Actually, I think that part of it, the full-time jobs, the benefits, things like that, I actually did lump into one, so I can't speak from experience, but honestly, I can remember very, very clearly thinking that I think it was much more similar back then at the beginning of my career than it was different, because I remember thinking, I am going to be a journalist and I'm going to be poor. My life is going to be that of economic insecurity, because journalism was not a well-paid career back then. And so I wanted to do it so badly. I thought, I'm going to be a journalist, I'm going to be poor, and that's just fine. And, we all got job offers from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley for years. We're a young reporter on the Wall Street Journal, to go do something different. And I can remember, over and over again, turning down job offers to make twice what I was making as a journalist, because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a journalist. Now, you guys, I think, are facing a little bit different thing, because there wasn't this part-time thing and there wasn't this internship thing, going on. But I honestly think that's just a phase. And I think things are beginning to solidify. I think things are beginning to get clearer. And I think you guys are going to have a trajectory that's going to be more secure as the years go on. And so I think you're in a good spot right now. So I wouldn't worry too much. I know it's easy for me to say right now, but I worry the same way you're worrying when I was 22. But it turned out okay.
I might ask you about reading your book about how you felt when you
And
went to
talk
China.
out, because I want everyone back with you.
If everyone doesn't know, Amanda went to China by herself. You were alone, young, and some of these folks would probably go somewhere totally strange, and I haven't seen kind of feeling you. Can you talk about what that felt like and how you dealt with the feelings of being in a new place, a very strange place, alone?
Well, and I'm sure you guys have all done stuff like this, and some of the things I wanted to say is that just because you're scared doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Just because you fail doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. So I went to China having prepared to do something completely different. As in many things, it was total serendipity. I was preparing to do a completely different assignment, and the Beijing bureau chief decided he wanted to quit. He didn't want to be there anymore, so they just kind of plugged me in. I didn't speak Chinese. I didn't know where China was. And in those days, China was something that people had studied for their whole lives, because it had been closed. They couldn't do it. So the pool of China journalists were extremely well educated and waiting to go there. I'm the first one to go there. It's like, there's this, and so, I felt like crap pretty much the entire 3 years I was in China. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know why I'm here, I'm really far away, I'm by myself. It was a complete, how many of you have been to China? right, you know, half the room, right? You know, it's a completely different,
And what year was this?
It was 1983. How many of you were born in 1983? Right, don't do this.
I was there in 1983 too.
Yeah.
And they were all wearing now suits.
There were wearing brown suits, there were no stores, there were no, you know, everything still like
No
no
Starbucks?
there was no stores. Everybody you got your stuff like in a military barracks. You know, it was assigned to you that you had meal coupons. You went, you got, you know, so it was nothing. You know, I was, and yeah, I did some of the best work. I did some of the best work while I was there.
Because you were motivated to have to succeed, right?
Yeah, and it was really, really different. It's strange thing. You know, like you guys have done things for strange TV. It's the best. It's the best.
Is China as big as of a story back then, and now it's China's a huge business story because of the market?
It's actually, I think in some ways it was a bigger story back then. And so I thought, and I can remember having a moment where I thought, oh my God, I'm here, I'm 30 years old, I've been and I'm in the biggest, you know, kind of transform the economy, working for a business paper, explaining it to the biggest business audience. Oh my God, this is just amazing. I felt so cool about it. But I think it was even a bigger story back then because it was you know, it was just emerging from, you know, 20 years, 25 years being isolated to the rest of the world. And in 1983 was the year that Deng Xiaoping came out and said, open it up. So it was this massive transformation.
And the Cultural Revolution just ended.
Pretty much just ended because it was, you know, it was a decade over, but they were still very much in that mode. So.
And tell what story, because Amanda also wrote a book, 6 books.
6 bucks.
She's doing another one now, but the one that came out most recently is called The Cost of Hope. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and it's got healthcare implications. But in that, you talk about going to China and some of the big stories of how you were trying to get to some sources and that kind of thing. So tell about one of those stories.
About trying to get to some sources.
And yeah, and to break a story when it was hard to kind of break. Did you have a big one there? What was your biggest story in China?
Probably the biggest story I did was almost the last one I did, in which I wrote a big front page piece essentially about how the modus operandi of the Chinese government was lying. That was, and I basically was able to marshal all those things to show, in fact, how they were deliberately. And it started with a quote from Deng Xiaoping saying, you know, basically, you know, we're lying about stuff. And so it was all about how that was one of the things that was, we would call it lying and they would call it shaping reality for what they wanted. But how we would take things to be true, absolutely true, and they would take things to be sort of aspirational. And so how there was this big cultural difference. So it was a fairly big story.
Is there as much media control in China back then? I mean, now you write something about your website's going to was it the same kind of thing?
It was different back then because they didn't have to censor you because the entire population was self-censored. So you would walk up to people and say, excuse me, can you tell me the way to the shopping center, whatever, and they freeze and run away. They wouldn't talk to you. It was very effective. And so one of the things about getting sources was trying to find 1 or 2 people who could say anything to you. So you didn't have to have this massive thing. You never found out it. It was very hard to find out stuff. And it's hard to overestimate how foreign we were. You know, so you go out for a walk and crowds would form around you. And they would touch you. They would reach out and stroke your hair like this. And I can remember talking to somebody, and I got to speak Chinese for reasonably well to get myself around, having a conversation with a crowd in the street. They were all standing around me. I could hear them talking. And I said to somebody, you know, like, who do you think I am? And they said, we're not sure. And I said, where do you think I came from? And they said, did you come from Chengdu? And it was the next town over. And suddenly I heard somebody say, you know, it's really weird. She's talking. I don't understand her. And I said, well, you know, what language do you think I'm talking? And they thought for a while. And they said, well, you're speaking our language. I said, that's right. And I said, do you want to ask me anything? And they kind of conferred for a second. And they said, and this is, okay, I just want to tell you, this was in the summer. Okay, so I was dressed in summertime clothes. They said, "Are you a man or a woman?" And I said, "Look at me and tell me what you think." And they kind of looked real hard and they said, "We think you're a woman." I said, "Good kiss." It wasn't that they couldn't be like, when they stopped to observe, it was that my foreignness was overwhelmed everything else. It just burned the circuits out. So it was that different back then. It was that different.
Oh, no, I don't remember where I read this, maybe in a book or an interview I read or something, but you said you did some of your best reporting in China, even though it was some of the most challenging. So, is that necessary to be a good reporter, that you put yourself in the most unfamiliar, uncomfortable setting? It's not a necessary, but it's a good condition?
I think it's a good condition, which is why, you know, I think you look at my resume and you look at Dean King's resume, and it looks like a bus schedule. You know, we just changed every three
That's a good point.
years. You know,
Just keep changing jobs.
and
Moving up.
you just keep changing jobs all the time. I think part of it was that you needed to be someplace where you were always looking at something unfamiliar and something challenging and something different. And that contradicts my advice to people, which is get yourself some site-specific knowledge, a skill. You want a skill in healthcare reporting. You want a skill in the bond market. You want a skill in China. You want a skill that you can draw on. But you also want to put yourself on the cusp, and you can get different skills. I mean, I don't mean that you want to become something and stay that thing forever, but you know, I joined the Wall Street Journal without knowing what the bond market was. I didn't know what a balance sheet was. I didn't know what profit and loss was.
Jen taking Chris Roush's course.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that stuff, and yet I did go and I got myself to be a licensed stockbroker, so I could, because it required you to learn all that stuff. And in China, I mean, I just spent my whole time just reading and learning and studying. And I took Chinese. You can get yourself specific stuff, but you're also trying to keep yourself on the cutting edge.
I wanted to ask Ben about health care and health costs. You read a lot in your book about not knowing at first what all these things cost. When your husband was diagnosed with cancer and you were going through all of that, what would you tell a would-be journalist or healthcare PR person about what do they need to know to cover something like that? You delved into it.
Well, let me tell you a little bit how I got to do that book, because it tells a lot. Somebody was asking in one of the classes earlier how you get ideas for stories, and the answer is you get them everywhere, but a lot of it you often get from your own experience. And I just want you to tell you that the story I'm going to tell you sounds sad. It is sad, but it also was quite a wonderful story. So I did meet Mary Man in China. We were married for 20 years and 2 kids. I'll talk to you about that when we talk about women leadership, because it's totally possible, guys. Totally possible. So I met this wonderful guy. And then 13 years into our marriage, he was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. And we fought it for a bunch of years with all kinds of different things. We did, cutting edge stuff, we did vegetable stuff, we did experimental stuff, we did the whole bit. And then ultimately, he died. And so 2 years after that, I couldn't have done it right away. It would have been too hard. But 2 years after that was the middle of the Obama campaign, and that was the time when Michelle Bachmann and Sarah Palin were both talking about the death panels. And I remember just kind of hearing that and thinking, oh my God, I wish I'd had something like that to help me. I didn't see it I saw it as an ugly word, but not an ugly concept, because I felt like that I was all alone. That the whole healthcare organization was just all so fragmented, and it all had their own agendas, and the hospitals had their agendas, and the clinical trials had their agendas, the doctors had their agendas, they weren't taught, and it was just me. It was just me and Perry, trying to figure out what to do. And so I thought, wait a second, I'm in a unique position here. I work for Bloomberg, which has basically all the backing of the law. They just have it all. I'm a skilled investigative reporter. I've got a team here. I had this very intense personal experience that was very difficult. Why don't I go and look at what it was like behind the scenes, the part I didn't know about? And I have the right, as Terry's widow, the one thing that HIPAA privacy. What very few people realize is HIPAA also gives you a right to your data, an absolute right to your data. So there was no arguing about it. I could go to every single, which I ultimately did, with every doctor, every oncologist, every nurse practitioner, every hospital, every pathologist, and said, give me his records. And I went to the insurance company, I said, give me his records. And you don't even have to ask twice, there's like a box. And so I got everything, it was a big box, about 500 pages, well, that's 5,000 pages. It was a big box. And then I gave it to a guy who does data than I do, and we sorted it all out. And what I did was I took my personal journey, the things I remember as a human being, as a mother, and as his kid, and I sort of was thinking about how I was approaching all this disconnected stuff. And then I looked at what each step of it cost and what we were spending each step of the way. And I was looking at what was going on behind the scenes, and one of the things I discovered, and I think it was the most powerful message I got in it, was it wasn't me, it was them. You know, I was confused and disoriented and stuff because it really was all fragmented. They were all working at cross purposes. They weren't talking to each other. And, you know, and this is a medical audience, but one thing I did find that this is my little parlor game. So he was sick for 7 years. He had kidney cancer. And one of the ways you treat things is you go and you do MRIs, you do scans. So over the 7-year period, how many scans did my husband have? Come on, kids. Take a guess.
7 years. How many scans?
How many CAT scans did he have?
40.
Okay, we got a bold guess over here. 40. Good. Okay, I'll pretend it was 73. And so you say, and I didn't realize that. I'm sure he didn't realize that. We didn't stop and count. Why 73? That's one a month for 7 years. And it was just basically, you know, because the insurance was paying for it, and we were like, do whatever you want, doctor. You know, this is, if you need it, go do it. They were all just like, let's get a CAT scan. Let's get a CAT scan. It's all free. You know, let's get a CAT scan. Nobody's paying attention. Was this good for him? Probably not. Was this good for America? Probably not. Did it make him any healthier or make him die any later? Probably not. But, you know, I didn't know that till I spent, 6 to 9 months with skilled investigative journalists putting all this stuff together. That's what I would say to people is there's stories out there or get it from a point of view of reading this and stuff.
So the piece you wrote before the book for Bloomberg Business Week was a departure from what they were.
Yeah, it was a first-person story.
Yeah, that is not how I think of Bloomberg.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I've been saying is everybody said, oh no, nobody can do a first-person story. We won't allow it. It's just never. And I said, okay, yeah, really. So let's fine. Why not try it? I just go with a map, Wiggler, which a lot of you have seen here, and it was like imagine a wow. So but I go in there and I say, how about doing it? He said, I don't want us to show off. I said, how about I just try? And he said, all right, whatever. And so I do it, and I show it to him, and I come in and so this is so what was to lose? What was to lose? And I often find these rules, the rules are, they're fake rules, they're not really rules, they're rules that are for one set of circumstances, and if you say, well, this is a really different set of circumstances, what's the harm in it? And also, so he didn't let me do it. What's the downside of that? So I would have done it, or I would have done it some other way, or I would have found another way around it. It's like, just because there's a possibility you're going to fail doesn't mean you should try it. Just because you do fail doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, right? So, anyway.
No, it's like a challenge for you to yes.
Well, especially if you think what you're going to produce would help the outcome. I mean, you weren't asking for 6 months off
No.
to do nothing. You were going to give them a story that probably brought in a type of audience they would not have seen. Because honestly, 15 pages about the cost of healthcare can be that's a nice way to put it. Daunting, right? Daunting and dry. And the way that you told it, it wasn't modeling, it wasn't woe is me, but it was well, this is what I've learned. And you had the data to back it up. It wasn't just this is what.
And the other helpful thing is that my late husband was a hilarious character. I mean, he was just a very strange person. In a wonderful way, so it sort of,
And he really just did soybeans? That what, he wasn't behind the scenes, he wasn't
I
a
don't think
spy or something?
he was there for everybody. He was.
She met him in China.
I met him in China. He's this Columbia University educated, fluent Chinese speaker, very urbane guy, very educated, speaks 6 languages, plays lots of musical instruments. And, you know, I meet him there and he lies to me about his identity, that's the other thing. We meet at a party and he tells me he's a Fulbright scholar because I was working on a story and he said he's a Fulbright scholar specializing in the subject that I was working on the story for, so he talks to me for a long time. And then I find that he's actually a representative for the American Soybean Association.
Not a good pickup line.
That's exactly what he said. He said, how long would you have talked to me if I said I was in soybeans? I said, I got a point, buddy. But, you know, everybody, because it's like, this educated guy speaks Chinese, he's working for soybeans, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's why I read that, I thought, what's behind it?
Yeah.
What's really, but he was
But the other thing was, for the entire 3 years we were there, I'd say, tell me the truth, are you a spy? I said, can't talk.
which is sexy, even if it's not true.
Yeah, and I think that was the
It's
goal.
intriguing.
I think that was the goal. I think his big goal was to drive me. But I don't think he actually was. I think he actually did work for soybeans. So.
Does it look back, if you could look back now and talk to a young woman who's just graduating from college, would you give her advice that might make you have done something different? What would you tell her about being out there?
I don't know about being not fair, but the one thing I would say to everybody, to young women, and now hopefully to young men as well, because I hope this issue is as much on the front burner of young men as it is of young women, but you can have a happy family and be fully engaged with your work. And in fact, it's almost better. It's almost better. And one thing I do say is I hope by now the way of the balance issue is as much a concern of young men as young women, because one of the things I'm hoping is that all of you young women are going to be expecting that of your partners. And so that if you want an awesome partner, gentlemen, you better be prepared to think about this as an issue is your issue as much as hers. But that being said, and honestly, Terry, that was one of Terry's things. Terry was totally, I'm all about helping you with your career. And I think we have a terrific partnership because of that. He was here for that generation, unusual. But, you know, I did go to China by myself. I didn't meet Boston. I was 9 months pregnant when I was doing the last draft of my book, and I did the last draft of my book while I was working full time. You know, so I had kids, I had a family, I had 2 wonderful kids, I still have 2 wonderful kids. You know, I think it's totally possible. And you can push your employers. I don't think women ask enough of their employers. I think they're so totally afraid to ask, and ask for enough. I think if you go in, like, I think I was probably unusual for my generation. I should not be unusual for your generation. I went in, early, I did work, I didn't work days, I didn't make the job early. And I walked in and I said, look, I need a job that can be, relatively, time secure. I just, I can't be staying here till 9 o'clock at night. So they said, here, go do this, boring, stupid thing that nobody else wants to do. And I said, thank you, that's great. And so for 3 years, I did the boring, stupid thing that nobody wanted to do. And I was perfectly happy. I came in at 9:30 and I left at 5:30. And everybody was happy because I was doing something nobody else wanted to do. And at the end of that time, my son went to, the younger one, went to school and was there mostly. I walked in and said, okay, I'm ready now. I want to get back on track. And the first job, I said, I want this job. They said no. And then the second job, they said no. And the third job, they said no. And I was just about, at that point, I was actually just about to quit and say, I'm going to go and freelance because I'm never going to do it. And I remember thinking, I'd really like to move to Atlanta where it's cheap, and I'm going to quit and freelance. And they called me and said, would you like to be bureau chief of our 12-person office in Atlanta? I was like, I thought because you were turning me down, you didn't like me. And he said, no, it just wasn't the right time for you. And so, you know, I take a job, I kind of step off for a bit, do boring things that nobody else wants to do so I can be around with my kids and be. And then, I think the critical part is at the end of that, I said, I'm ready to come back now. And I was really pretty, I said, I'm ambitious because I took off doesn't mean I'm not ambitious. Please remember me. And I had to keep coming back, I had to keep coming back, I had to keep coming back. But you can do all this, you just have to think about it. And you have to remember that no one is thinking about it. No one. I was a really good boss. I really was. I was a really good boss. But I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't. I thought about them as much as I could, but I had a zillion other things to think about. So what was going to happen to their careers, I tried to think about. But the ones that were coming up in front of me saying, oh, by the way, over here, excuse me, over here, they were the ones, you know, I was just as proportionate paying attention to. I tried not to. I mean, I was a really good boss. I really tried not to. But it was just natural. The ones that were asking me for stuff were the ones that got stuff. And guess what, ladies? It was almost always the guys. The women were all saying, would you be my mentor? They were saying, would you be my mentor? The guys were saying, I need a raise. And you know what? Which was a more useful question. Right? The women were all saying, could you please, you know, talk to me every, you know, once a week. And the men were saying, I want a more challenging assignment. That's one of the things I would tell you guys all. Don't ever ask them to be your mentor. Ask them for something useful. Ask them for something useful. Ask them for a raise. Ask them for a recommendation. Ask them for an assignment. Ask to be introduced to somebody important. Ask for something specific. Because the guys all ask for specific stuff. And you know what? When they ask it about 3 times out of 4, they get it. And when you turn them down and say, no, I'm not going to introduce you to somebody important, they say, what's wrong with you? They don't say, oh, I'm stupid, I shouldn't have asked you. They say, why not? So just because somebody you get turned down, just have to remember, I got this first management job myself after being turned down 4 times. And honestly, I'm giving you this piece of advice because I did it wrong. It's like, I must be really stupid. I must be destined for a future in this boring, stupid thing that nobody else wants to do. But it just wasn't true. It wasn't true.
Because you were both ambitious and you were good.
Yeah, and you know what? I am assuming that everyone in this room is ambitious and good. And,
I am too.
And so the thing is to remember that you are ambitious and good in that.
And I think that's something maybe we need to work into in the form of the curriculum, but work into the practice in the classroom. Build in some type of exercise that involves that negotiation and the ask and the professional setting. I'm sure we do it in some of the upper level PR and advertising classes with group work and pitches, campaigns, and that, but I think we could explore that in journals.
You know, honestly, that's the thing I came up with basically in my last years at Bloomberg was that I think in particular there was a very lovely young woman she was working in human resources and she had gone to get a graduate degree in journalism and she came to me and said, will you be my mentor? And I said, yeah. And so I sat every week and said, every week I want you to ask me for something. Ask me to do something. And honestly, she had the hardest time doing it. So every week I want you to come to me, think of something that you want and ask me to do it for you. And, you know, like, do you need a letter of recommendation? Do you want to meet that Winkler? Do you want to sit in on a news meeting? Think of something that would be useful to you and look me in the eye and say, Amanda, I'd like you to do this for me. And after that, that was all I ever did. I said, yes.
Yeah, I'm 49.
Yeah.
Could you do that?
No. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that's what I would say is when you need to be asked. You need to be asked for things. And those of us that are older and kind of mentor people are really good to me. People ask us for things.
Chelsey, ready to ask?
Am I ready to ask?
Ask for things.
Oh,
Ask for
I
something.
guess so. I am now.
She'll hit you up after.
And I'll tell you the other thing, and this is really something I really like all of you, particularly the women, because it's something you can do. And honestly, if you leave the room and you take this on board and do it, I'll be really, really happy with that. Because, I mean, I'm 61 years old and I just discovered this. which is that, you know, the whole phenomenon of being in a room and everybody else pushes past you and they don't listen to you and they interrupt you and guys interrupt you and stuff like that.
Especially at Washington parties.
Yeah, it's really a big deal. You know, you just kind of have to fight for the place at the table, and I find it really hard. Even now at my age, I find it really hard to say, "Excuse me, I was talking." You know, but you know what I discovered I can do? I can do it for other women. I can do it for other women, and I've loved this because it's so wonderful. I do it at every place I am now because there's always an occasion for it. And I bet you didn't notice that in one of these classes I did it for two of you, which is, excuse me, I'd like to hear what she has to say. Wait a second, she was talking, let her finish. If you guys would do that for each other, you can do it for somebody else the way you can do it for yourself. And once you start paying attention to it and realizing that you're sitting at the table, and you guys can do it too. Men have done it for me. Wait a second, I'd like to hear what Amanda has to say. You know, and you don't have to be so rude as you don't interrupt her. Hang on a second, let her finish. Please do that. Just take that away, because you can do it for other people.
Do you think that, like for us women about to enter journalism, do you think that sexism is still an issue, either in the newsroom or among the sources we talk to? I mean, business at Bloomberg, I only spoke to male analysts. Is that still a problem?
Totally. And I'll tell you about the Bloomberg News Project. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about the Bloomberg News Project, because Lisa Cassinar, who's this awesome second generation down from me woman, you know, was really concerned about, so Bloomberg is a news, as you know, a news service. The audience is, I don't know, between 70 and 90% men between 35 and 45. I started there in 2007, and at that point, I'm not kidding, because your metrics were based on hits. There were hits. Google the word, not Google, inside the Bloomberg search system, pole dance, or breast, or Viagra, or sex, or believe it or not, you know, tripenis. You know, everything would go into the headlines, and so it was a very sexualized thing. So you either put, you know, pole dance or Goldman Sachs in the headline because you want to get on the And so, and there were virtually, I mean, Lisa did a count of how many stories had a sort of female protagonist or about some transition. I think she came up with 40. And I think every day there's something like 10,000 women.
And this isn't like 2000s,
Not
this
until-
is 17,
This is a
1970s.
Yeah, and she went to Matt Lincoln and said, we want to start a new project. And what we want to do is, our first goal is to clean up this project. And the second goal is to try and make our reporting more consistent with the actual legitimate role of women in business and the actual conclusion of practitioners. And God bless him, you know? Matt Lincoln was a serious feminist. Serious feminist, and he said, go for it. And what we discovered was that the whole news organization didn't like this. They actually, it wasn't a hard sell. You know, once we went out and said, come on guys, let's stop this stuff, and they realized they had permission not to try and jack up their hits by this, and it virtually went away. And just before I left this last fall, I actually looked up pole dancer. And in fact, there were two headlines with the word pole dancer, and they were actually legitimately about pole dancers because there was some kind of lawsuit having to do with an actual pole dancer. And it wasn't about some, you know, metaphor for, you know, something. So we cleaned that all up. But then I think we did something that I don't think anybody else has done, and I think it was a really important thing. We realized that the target audience for feminism had to be men. And we had to turn things around. So our goal was not to write women's stories, and not to write stories about gender balance, and not to write stories about sexism and oppression, and not to write stories about equal pay. All that was all important. We needed to see women as important players on the world stage. And so our goal, our phrase was that we were writing about the women that was important for men to know, and the subjects about women that was important for men to know. And honestly, that was such a liberating thing, because because what we discovered in doing that is that it just opened up a whole world of coverage. That we couldn't write things that would enable us to be marginalized in an audience that was 75% men. So we wrote the first profile of Christine Lagarde. You know, we wrote about Janet Yellen. You know, we wrote, and so.
How about the woman who's now head of GM?
Oh, bless her
And you know,
heart.
and you know what, Lisa would come to me all the time, she'd be pulling her hair out, she said, they would have had a profile of her a year and a half ago if they'd listened to me. And because, you know, we were all finding these things, and we had no team, that was the other thing, we didn't isolate it off of the team, it was just the two of us. And Lisa was just, and I was basically, all I did was sit there and give these petitions. That was my only role in this. Lisa would come to me and say, I want to do this, I want to go out to this, I want to, you know. I said, do, fine, yes. And she was just a firewall. She would come up with this book, and she would call up the heroes and say, here's this fantastic woman engineer, you really ought to do a profile of her. And we found that 3 out of 4 times people did do it. And then the 4th time, and then women group, they say, I can't remember the one that they just, the London Quail, what was the name of the woman that was the boss of the London? You know, they remember the London Whale, the big trade, the Morgan Stanley, the big trade that just about brought the bank down. Well, she was the boss of this, and she became central to this whole story. And Lisa had been for years saying, this woman's really important, you really need to pay attention to her. And of course, they didn't in that case, and so she just like said, "See, I told you so." So we were saying, this isn't about women's issues. There's lots of people who write about women's issues, lots of audiences that do that. This is about women as important players in the business world. And so we had big projects to up people's sources. Something little like the fact that we ran a weather report every day, you know, because it's important. People do props, they do all kinds of stuff. So we did a weather report every day. And there was no one meteorologist quoted in that weather report ever. And Lisa said, I'm sorry, there are women meteorologists out there. Go find some of them. And it sort of broadened the sources. It had a positive general effect, which is what's sort of the point, isn't it, right? It's not about necessarily just making our lives better and showing how badly oppressed we've been. It's like there were serious women who were doing serious jobs out there and they weren't making it into Bloomberg. And that was bad for the men, that was bad for the women, that was bad for the coverage, it was bad for everything. Then we did a project, and it was a wonderful project. Everybody sort of like totally got on board with it. Let's do profiles of women economists. And you know what? It totally broadened our horizons. We found economists we'd never thought of. You know, we found kind of schools of thought we had never thought of. It was extremely well read. That was the way we handled the Bloomberg project, was news about women that men should know about. And you know, I mean, it probably sounds a little retro, but it sort of took us in a completely different direction. And I don't think anybody has really done that before since.
And on direction, I'm going to turn some so you can get in the conversation, but I also want to just point out one woman with another woman who created a whole movement within a big organization like Bloomberg. And how many people are now working at Bloomberg across the world? Thousands. 2,400 probably journalists. So it's not like you have to wait for permission to do it. You start it. Who would like to ask the first question out there? If not, we'll keep going. I want you to be involved too. Come on.
Journalists, just
All right.
Did you find that a lot of the men that you worked with, I know you said your boss was very feminist, but did you find that when you tried to make these changes, there was any sort of pushback against it?
You know, honestly, my whole career has been, I'm going to say 80% men being completely and totally supportive and 20% of being total jerks. But I'm going to say that the percentage of women who are total jerks were about the same, you know? So yeah, I mean, there was some pushback. Some people say, no, you know, but it wasn't that meaningful for the fact that, you know, once you reached out for support for things, you found that they really were very helpful. And yeah, I wouldn't love the fact that there's 20% total jerks. I mean, in every area, it was 20% of this room is total jerks, right? It's like every field is
Well, I'm going to sit here.
No, it's totally true. Every area you're going to be in, there are going to be people who are going to give you grief, make you trouble, and make things happen for you. You just need to figure out how to do that.
All right, who else wants to? Okay, tell us your name.
Oh, it's Lauren, and I know you said when you first got out of school you didn't have a lot of background in like business and
go out, and I was in Canada at the time. It was called a registered representative. It's like being a licensed stockbroker, and you had to do a year-long course. And I studied and stuff, learned how to do. I learned how to be essentially be an analyst.
You kind of taught yourself?
I taught myself, but I also went to school and
Right.
learned some of them.
Okay.
Both are very effective.
I'm Megan, and I wanted to ask a similar question, but for China. So you said you just sort of ended up there without being ready for it. But if that happened, so if you had been able to prepare for it, what is something that you wish you had been able to do before you got there? How would you have prepared for that experience?
You headed for China this summer?
No.
We have 5 students going to China this summer.
I think probably I wished I had better language skills. I had to basically, do the same equivalent of I got the State Department tapes. I worked my way through the State Department tapes. I had to go once before I was going to go, so I did that. And I wished I had had more effective language skills. I still wish I had more effective language skills. Now that I'm doing what I really love, I can spare the time. I really, really, really want to go to China and spend 3 months in a person language program. I really love because I bet you half of you in here have got way better language skills now than I do. But that's one huge ability that you have now is to be able to get those language skills. That's what I'm doing.
We can keep talking. If I see a hand, I'm going to get it, so we'll keep going.
There's somebody back there.
All right.
So you keep using the word journalist. How do you define that for students who might think that they don't want to be journalists because they think journalist means working for a newspaper?
I don't think journalist means working for a newspaper. I would very specifically say that journalist means someone who does journalism, which is going out and finding and telling stories and dealing with news in its broadest sense. News being something that just happened, and news being something you don't know, and news being something that you need to be explicated on. You need to have things explained. So I think data journalists are journalists. I think in some ways some of the clarity that data brings to journalism, and the visualization is something that is just you couldn't have 1,000 words telling you the kind of clarity you get from that kind of thing. I think that video is journalism. I think that radio is journalism. I think it's all journalism. No, I would not say that means working for newspapers.
There is a perception, we've done a study, and young people, when they hear the word journalism, think newspapers. And when we say news, they don't necessarily say that.
So you're telling me that I should change my vocabulary?
No.
That's not what I mean.
But we're just trying to clarify that.
No. But honestly, I sometimes find that when I'm thinking of communicating is exactly what I'm thinking. I am not thinking about. Although I do think it is honestly true. And that's why I think you guys are going to have a really good career path because we are old. And we're about to finally stop walking away. And I think it's I'm the absolute epicenter of the baby boom. Me, so I was born right in the middle of the baby boom. So I'm 61. So
I'm in the last 3 months of the baby boom.
okay. And so as soon as she leaves, you guys are all home free. Just keep staring at her really hard and making her life difficult.
You said earlier that you believe that you can play a good box, and I was just curious about what you think, what are the components of being a good
So for everyone in the back, you said you were a good boss. What's it mean to be a good boss? What are the components of a good boss? And I'm listening very closely.
Honestly, I think it was sort of the way I felt about things that made me a good boss. I felt that everybody, unless I was proved otherwise, and honestly I've had to fire my fair share of people because I found people told me this was not true, but unless it was proved otherwise, people were really hardworking. They really wanted to do their best work, and if they weren't doing their best work and they were turning in junk and they weren't doing enough work, it was because they didn't know how. It wasn't that they were stupid or that they were being deliberately lazy or that, and so I thought that the problem with them was they didn't know how. And so if I could show them how, then I could make things better. And so I always felt very sympathetic to people because I had been on the other side. Honestly, I was in China, I can remember probably 3 or 4 whole days. What my goal was, I was so frozen, I was so scared, I was so petrified. My goal, literally, I started out saying, I'm going to write a page today. And I got down, I'm going to write a paragraph. And it was like 3 or 4 days when my goal was, I'm going to write 1 So I thought if I could have gotten myself in that situation because I was so scared and didn't know what to do, and I was so, that anybody came. And so my job was to take the pressure down, make them feel comfortable, make them understand what they can do, and help them think that way. I think that's what made me the boss.
Being vulnerable, at least being willing to show you've been vulnerable. And you don't feel that anyone took advantage of you as a boss when you're saying, I've been there.
They probably did, but I thought, well,
It's worth it.
it's worth it. The downside of having people think, oh God, what a loser she is. Well, you know, I'm sure.
You're not a loser.
Well,
You're in this kind of loser.
yeah, but people, you know very well that people in high-level positions can be total losers, right? So that's also true, but no, but it wasn't that big. It wasn't that big. The value to me was
So people I do have broken any barriers in regards to women and journalism. Now, what do you think some of the challenges that young female journalists are going to have to face today?
Because they're not going to be the first one in the 60%, the 65% of our students are women.
Well, and one thing I would say is I think there's been a substantial amount of inertial backsliding. So during the year I was at the Philadelphia Inquirer, so I was the editor of the fourth largest metro daily, and Julie Wallace was the editor in Atlanta, and Vicki Gower was in Minneapolis, and Sam Monroe was in Oregonian, and I mean I'll just go on, and I'll probably name 10 of us as leaders of major metro newspapers that time here all. There's a woman in Houston. But aside from, and people would, and I objected to this when Jill became editor of the New York Times. I said, oh, this just shows the barriers are all broken. I said, 5 years ago you could name 10 or 12 major metro news editors. Now name me one, because one hadn't gone to Houston yet, or not. So something happened to flush them out of the system. And I don't know what it was, but I think there has been some backsliding, and I think that you're going to have to assume that it's not necessarily an obvious and straight shot that to get up to the top. I mean, the mid-level is filling in quite nicely, but it's back to the glass ceiling again. For some reason, everybody broke through, and there was a big thing, and then it turned. And I would pay very close attention to that, and I would ask questions. And in your news organization, I would ask about, what are you doing to promote women? And I would be extremely polite and extremely nice and extremely gentle and extremely honest.
I'm cautious about the time, and I know I want to have you take one more question. Those of you who have read the book, all of us have read the book, because Nicole and her husband was one of the funniest guys. It's a tremendous love story, as well as an analysis. One of the things that always hit me was that Terry said to you, if I'm gone, I want you to fall in love again. And Amanda has fallen in love again. So I want to leave it on enough note. Do you want to share with them?
Sure.
Are you married?
Sure, and that's part of the it can work. So journalism brought me, both my husbands. One for my assignment, the other was a guy I met. I was on the board of the Pulitzer Prizes with a really nice guy who was, I just have to say, was wrong in every one of his judgments. He disagreed with me, and
On the Pulitzers.
and the Pulitzers, but he was divorced while we were there, and about 7 months later Terry died, and we were both totally miserable. And so we started playing Scrabble online. Oh, yeah. Isn't that like really old? But so in the middle of my big China story a year and a half ago, I married Don Graham, who was on the Washington Post, and sold the Washington Post to Jeff Bezos, and is one of the truly great gentlemen of journalism, and really wonderful person. And Catherine Graham's son, by the way. And if you haven't read his mother's autobiography, go get it now.
And he too is So that's why I wanted Amanda here. You can't get a better professional, you can't get anyone who's been more at the top, and it's someone who wants to live a full life. And I think that's what I would say all of us at the school want you to have, men and women. You know, we want you to have success. In my estimation, UNC students, you're all going to be leaders in some capacity that you define for yourself. But you want to have a full life. Don't have anyone tell you you can't. You may have to make choices, but that's why I